But one of the things that meeting up with my 8 women in the women's circle, 7 women and me in the women's circle has done is it's reconnected me with nature and with the reverence for nature and the cycles of change and the interconnectedness.
I always had a very rapturous experience and believed in fairies and all of that.
I'm Juliet Batten, and I've retired recently as a psychotherapist and reinvented myself as a mentor for people with creative projects.
Well, I'm Mary Hancock and I am now a life adventurer.
I'm Nicola Campbell and I am a mother and I am a professional in the field of leadership development. I help people.
Well, I'm Helen Palmer, and I'm a psychotherapist.
Okay, I'm Helen. And I'm a sculptor, and a mother, and a grandmother, and a wife, and friends. Yeah.
So, when I first joined Cone, I was 26, and I'd been living in Auckland, having moved up from Nelson. I'd been living in Auckland for a couple of years, and I was really involved in the creative scene.
I was teaching the sacred art of ritual. Actually, it was called something slightly different back then, but I was teaching back then. I just started in 1984.
I joined on the invitation of Juliet, who was doing the basic foundation year course that my husband and I were offering. We came back in 1986 from living abroad and set up the Institute of Psychosynthesis. So Juliet was doing that and thought I might be a fit with Cone. So I joined Cone in September at Equinox. It will be 31 years.
So the seasonal celebrations come from Celtic origins and Wiccan traditions. And we I guess sourced those traditions when we first started 30 or 40 years ago now.
And we started that group in November 1985.
My mother was a feminist, so we had Betty Friedan, The Feminine Mystique. The first novel I can remember reading as a feminist novel was Fay Weldon's The Fat Woman's Joke.
Well, really, the feminine spirituality was part of the whole feminist movement that I was very involved in, and I was working as a feminist artist at the time, also a full-time artist, and very involved in the women's art movement.
I think I was about 28, 29, and the exciting thing about moving to Auckland at that stage was it was the tail end of the highly activist stage of the feminist movement, and it was the beginning of a movement which was called women's spirituality.
The feminine was always part of it because that's what I had been exploring, and it seemed so much more alive and vital and relating to me and my body than the patriarchal religion where God was a male ever did.
It was for me, it was in the mid-80s. There was a real groundswell of need to meet up with other women who were similarly seeking ways of finding out what spirituality meant to them that wasn't to do with a patriarchal traditional religion.
All the traditional religions were exploring God, and very much in a male context, and as a woman it was like, whoa, this just doesn't fit.
So Cone meets every 6 weeks at a time of seasonal change.
We just sit in a circle after 34 years and we hold hands and Sacred Space is there just like that.
Yeah.
So strong. And we will call in the 4 directions, the 4 elements of life. We will call in the centre, and we often do that quite spontaneously and collaboratively.
Those 8 seasonal markers hold us together, and we got together for ritual and ceremony. We weren't a support group, we weren't a therapy group, we were a ritual group. And so acknowledging those major changes is always at the core of what we do, but we also are touching the depths and the highs of life, of mystery, of connection. So there's this beautiful combination of all aspects of life and the mysteries of life all weave together in what we do in Cone.
So we didn't let the kind of ordinary stuff that happens with groups, which demands attention to a group process and how you're feeling about each other, be really the most important focus. It was always about coming together to mark these important times of the seasonal ritual, the great year, the great cycle, which most Indigenous societies are based on.
I think our profound honesty and witnessing each other's lives unfolding, there's a tremendous bond because of that.
In 1992, Helen Pollock exhibited a collection of her artworks based around the goddess, and Cone and many other women opened the exhibition through a ceremony that was to celebrate the goddess within.
It's so powerful, meeting in sacred space. It's different from that conversational social space, which is where our differences become apparent, and there's often a lot of clashing. And in sacred space, it's like everything comes into what connects us.
And then, of course, over all these years, it's just been a deepening of friendship and love and connection between us, that now, at this stage, we realise is one of the most wonderful things.
I mean, I'm a mother. I mean, that whole experience of being a mother, whole experience of being female, like a girl, a woman, and then actually finding words for that experience was a wonderful thing. It was like walking into the light.
Well, I'm laughing. A big part of what we share when we're in our groups is what was real for us during those times. And for many of us, there were different challenges that we were facing, or wonderful things that we were celebrating. And of course, some of these things last years, and one of the things that I was challenged by right through the 80s, right through the 90s, was infertility. And so this group and at the gatherings was the one place in my world where I could bring and share some of what was so difficult about that phase, but also ask for support. And one thing that we did at one of the rituals was we made some little eggs out of clay collaboratively to symbolise fertility for me. But what happened was that 2 years after giving up, I conceived. And I still had that little egg sitting in a little box, all wrapped up and being nurtured, and I often think how magic that was.
We surprise each other still, and we also make each other laugh, and we can also be there when there have been some very challenging and demanding things that each woman has faced, and we know that there is the utter support that we can call on.